The beginning of the Tuskegee Area Chamber of Commerce was 50 years ago, June 1971. Recognizing this milestone, the organization has coordinated a series of intergenerational conversations where history and wisdom are passed like a baton in a relay race from one generation to the next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jared Clay, the newly elected Vice President of the Tuskegee Area Chamber of Commerce, and today we're here to interview a juggernaut in the Tuskegee community, a man who's held many positions, state representative, state senator, president of the Tuskegee Area Chamber of Commerce, and many, many more. But to me, he's my father, George Clay. Welcome, Mr. Clay.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
It certainly is. A beautiful day in Tuskegee.
Yeah.
All right, let's kind of just jump into this. It's going to be a casual conversation about your days at the helm of the Chamber of Commerce.
All right.
Throughout the years, what would you say is your most notable accomplishment as the president of the chamber?
Well, I came in as president at a very difficult time in the history of Tuskegee. It was a period of change, of transition. But I think that we were able to accomplish a couple of things. The first thing is that we had a Shop Tuskegee First campaign.
Absolutely.
That was designed to kind of combat the shopping patterns that had been established through the two boycotts that Tuskegee had gone through.
Okay.
The other thing is that the governing bodies of Tuskegee and Macon County were not very aware of the needs of the business community, and so we kind of sensitized the public officials to the need to be supportive of business, because in the final analysis, that is why we come together as a society for commerce. That is the reason for society.
That's right.
So we sensitized them to that, and I think they kind of stayed that way for a number of years.
Mm-hmm. Could you kind of drill down into what you were saying about the two boycotts and how it changed the citizens' shopping habits? Because many of them may not even be aware of the boycotts.
Well, during the 1950s and early 60s, a big boycott was carried on here in Tuskegee. The African American community basically against the downtown merchants. It was because of the gerrymandering situation, and of course the employment situation with regard to blacks in the stores downtowns. And what happened during that period of time is actually in the Institute area, businesses developed. Businesses like Reed's Haberdashery and Floss's Fashions and E.W. Frazier's Service Station. Just a number of businesses established themselves during that period of time. But it really had a very detrimental effect on the economy of Tuskegee. That's basically what was going on.
I mean, that's interesting stuff, because we still see those shopping patterns persist today.
Yes.
I know myself personally, I go to Auburn frequently throughout the week to get a lot of various things. And it's mainly because our economy is not as diverse as what I'd like to see it be. Hopefully someday in the future, soon, we'll be able to kind of diversify things and get some more retail in here, manufacturing jobs.
Hopefully, but the real problem was the closing of the VA hospital. And of course, that didn't take place during my tenure. During my tenure, the VA was in operation.
Sure.
But we had a rumor it was more than a rumor, we had information from Washington, D.C. that they were going to close the VA hospital. Mm-hmm. And it took them about 10 years to do it, but it's been wound down now from one of the largest VA hospitals in the country down to basically a nursing home.
Yeah.
And so we've lost the doctors, the nurses, the technicians that were here during that period of time. Also, the coming of the big box stores, the Home Depot, the Lowe's,
Walmarts.
the Walmarts, those big box stores and the chain drug stores And just to give you some idea of what happened to just here in this community, stores like Williams Home Center, Western Auto Store, Alley Mercantile,
Jones Business Machine.
Jones Business Machines, that's right. Daniel's Clothing, all of those closed up.
Yeah.
And then we had a situation where the city, losing sales tax revenue, then they tacked on a gasoline tax.
That's right.
And when they tacked on the gasoline tax, then you started seeing service stations closed. Yeah. Child's Standard, Bailey Partridge Pure Service Station, Jody stayed open for a long time because he had a lot of things going. But E.W. Fraser Service Station, Snowden Service Station, Hicks Amoco, and Tuskegeans, old Tuskegeans know what I'm talking about because these names are familiar to them.
Sure.
But we had so many. I've listed in some notes that I've made about 30 businesses that existed then that closed down, and it had to do with the change in the shopping patterns. Yeah. And so that's why we had the Shop Tuskegee First campaign, to try to save those stores, because we could see what was coming.
Absolutely.
We could see what was coming,
yeah.
and it did come. So that, the boycotts plus the winding down of the VA hospital.
And then the big office businesses.
And it's been rough.
Yeah.
It's been rough. But we're reinventing ourselves now. Mm-hmm. And so I have a very positive attitude about it. We've gone from 13,500 in population down to 7,000.
That's right.
And so, we've got to rebuild that. We've got to rethink what this community is all about. Yeah. During a period of time of political change, we went from being basically a college town in the Tuskegee Institute area, and then downtown was just, your normal light commerce. Mm-hmm. But we've got to reestablish the relationship with Tuskegee University. Mm-hmm. We've got to get the students back in town because they're now living out of town. Right. Many of them are living in Auburn. We've got to provide decent housing for them and the professors in order to be able to move forward.
Yeah, to be able to attract them back.
Absolutely. That's what we are. We have to realize what we are and not try to be something else, but embrace what we are and build on it from there.
Mm-hmm. And you said something I think is very important too about the sales tax.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people will increase sales tax as a means to increase revenue, but oftentimes that'll have an adverse effect on the city's budget.
Absolutely.
And cause shopping patterns to dissipate as well. Because nobody really wants to pay more in taxes.
Absolutely.
So, I think over time we'll become more savvy and realize the effect that some of these policy changes have had on our economy, and hopefully we'll make better decisions moving forward.
In that regard, with regard to taxes, back when I was in the House of Representatives, the county commission was asked by the Board of Education to increase sales tax 2%. Mm-hmm. There's a provision in state law that allows the county commission to put on a 2% sales tax for education. Mm-hmm. And so the Board of Education needed money, so the county commission did that. Yeah. They thought that it was going to increase the sales tax revenue. It actually decreased about 30 or 40%.
Yeah.
So we had an absolute dollar decrease in sales tax rather than the increase that they had anticipated. Yeah. They would have been better off if they had reduced the sales tax and dedicated some of the increase in sales tax to the Board of Education.
Absolutely.
But it's hard to think that way, particularly if you haven't ever studied economics or you don't have any experience in business. A lot of times you can decrease the price and it therefore increases the absolute dollars. So we've done it again now. We've gone up to 12% sales tax, and there are other communities around us that have done the same thing. Yeah. And of course what happens is that people move out of town. Every town that does that, just watch and see what happens.
Yeah, they're gonna dry up. I mean, you have to provide services at the same standard they would do in Montgomery or Auburn. Set your tax base at least at that level, nothing greater than. Otherwise, you're just pretty much asking for business to go somewhere else.
Absolutely, and that's what's happened. So we've got to somehow get people to rethink that.
Yes, sir.
And of course, we have high hopes for what's going on out at Exit 38, and hope that will generate some sales tax, and hope that it will attract some other businesses as well.
Certainly. Well, you kind of hit some points around the second question I had for you, and we'll take that as that. But if you have any other feelings that you'd like to add regarding what do you think are some of your greatest challenges as the Chamber of President? You've kind of alluded to the big businesses and sales tax and some of those things, but what are some of the other challenges you face, like maybe budget constraints or anything like that?
Actually, it was more in times past as it is now. There was a kind of I hate to say socialistic, but it really was attitude. The attitude was that the function of government was to provide employment. That should not be
That's for the business
the
community.
function
Yeah.
of government. The function of government is to do those things collectively what we can't do individually. That's what government is supposed to do. You can't use government as an employment service. You just can't do that because it's not going to work. What happens is you're just going to have to increase tax to meet your payroll, and that's been an ever-present problem in our community for many years. I see some change now. And I really hope that change will continue in that direction.
Absolutely. Awesome. What are some of your greatest hopes for today's local business community?
Well, as I said before, I hope we can reinvent ourselves. I hope that we can work together as a business community and work in concert with fraternities, sororities, all of the community organizations. We have to clean the city up. One of the things is, it's trash everywhere. If you look at the curves, grass is growing out into the street, and those are signs of decay. And so if you can just do away with, and it's simple to clean up. I remember a song that I learned in nursery school. The name of the song was "Brighten the Corner Where You Are."
That's right.
If everybody would just clean up around their homes, clean up around their businesses, it'll take some of the strain off of government and help us to create a clean city. There's no reason not to do it. When I was in the Army, I was in Germany for a period of time, and I noticed that every morning the ladies would come out of their homes and they would clean around the front. They would clean the front steps. A lot of those houses was just a door and then steps right in front of the door. They would come out and they would clean around that area.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't wait for government to do it. They did it themselves.
They had pride in their own property.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I will point out is that we recently started talking about cleanliness and trying to pick up trash and that sort of thing in the Chamber of Commerce meeting and in other community meetings as well. And I noticed that particularly the people in Franklin started picking up paper on Pleasant Springs Drive. And Pleasant Springs Drive was one of the worst places in town. But those people got out there, you see ladies and men out there picking up that paper. And I know it's around town. Some of the churches now are actually having cleanup campaigns. And that is so valuable. It's valuable because we need cleanliness, but it's also valuable because we're working together as a community. And that absolutely must happen.
I agree.
And, I wasn't born here. I chose to live here. and it has been good. Tuskegee's been good to me,
That's right.
and I want to do what I can do.
Let me say, I was born and raised here in Tuskegee.
Absolutely.
And there's one thing I know about my Tuskegeans. We are some of the bougiest people you will ever meet in your life. And we are not going to patronize a business that does not look a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's just the bottom line. So
Yeah.
we want to encourage everybody in Tuskegee to go out, clean your properties up, and hopefully that'll turn it to $1 for you.
You mentioned something then that I can to develop a little bit. One of the problems we had, we had 2 hospitals to close. John Andrew Hospital and the Macon County Hospital.
Sure.
There were 3 hospitals in this community. 2 of them closed. And part of that was because we chose doctors out of town. There was a time when almost every black child that was born at a hospital in the state of Alabama was born at John Andrew Hospital. There's a lot of people in Birmingham and in Huntsville even, in Mobile, that were born at John Andrew Hospital because it was the only hospital where black women could come and deliver their babies and feel good about it and have dignity and being treated with dignity. That was not the case in hospitals throughout the state. I remember once my mother got sick, she had an inner ear problem and she couldn't hardly stand up. And she was put in the hospital, I think it was Caraway in Birmingham. And they had her down in the basement in the hospital.
That's right.
Now she was a paying customer like everybody else, but they had her in the basement. She wasn't the only one down there. They just had a black folks ward in the basement. And my uncle George Frank came over here from Mississippi, and he pitched a fit because even in Mississippi they did not do that kind of thing to black. Not in Meridian anyway. That's where my family comes from. And but John Andrew Hospital was like a sacred place for the medical community in this whole country. Every year they had a big, I guess they call it a confab or a big annual convention where doctors all over the country would come to John Andrew Hospital for that meeting. And as a matter of fact, I think Dr. Charles Drew, if I remember correctly, he had an automobile accident on the way coming to Tuskegee. And as you know, Charles Drew created or developed blood plasma. So Tuskegee was a wonderful cultural center. I'd like to see Tuskegee become a center for artists. I thought at one time that the Commodores were going to develop that kind of community because they built their studio here, which is it's a museum now. But they did that, and Diane Robinson too set up the dance studio down there. It looked like we might be attracting, artists to the community, and I had hoped that would develop and really make it a comfortable place for artists to come and to be creative here. We've had a number of writers, world-renowned, Langston Hughes, William Dawson. William Dawson, a great composer of Negro spirituals, and Langston Hughes, great author.
Yeah.
So, many people have come here and have been creative here and have performed here, particularly when the old air base was in operation. Lena Horne and all the major stars at that time came here. There was a golf course once where the parking lot for the Airman's Museum is now. Over in that area, there was a golf course. I used to play there with Palmer Sullivan Sr. And Joe Lewis came and played at that golf course with Louis Rabb, who used to be the director of the John A. Andrew Hospital. I saw a picture once. Louis Rabb had we called him Mike Rabb. His name was L.A. Rabb. We called him Mike Rabb. He had a picture with Joe Lewis, and I think Dr. Russell Brown too, who was director of the Carver Research Foundation. Brilliant man. They played golf out there at their golf course. Because black people couldn't go to other golf courses.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the culture, the richness of the culture here is what kept me here.
Well, it's still here. There's a lot of untapped potential. You just need to set these young folks up for success and, maybe reinvent how we have our libraries set up and put more technology and things in there to help nourish and nurture what they have going on.
And provide housing.
Well, absolutely that. Yeah.
We have a lot of vacant houses around town now. Houses where people that were prominent people here, they died and their children, they moved to Atlanta, New York, Chicago, and they don't want to come back. So those houses just sitting there empty.
Yeah.
Which they can be renovated and provide good housing. But people that have lived in cities want apartments, condos. And I hope that we can see investment. I know the utility board is thinking along those lines, and I have great hope for that development as well.
Yeah. Well, that kind of is a good segue into the last question. You kind of answered it, but what do you hope the future looks like for our local business community? You've kind of hit on exit 38, trying to migrate business that way. You talked about housing.
Yeah.
All those are wins for us, but is there anything else you want to say regarding that?
Yeah, what's important, the reason that Tuskegee was so popular, well, one of the reasons that Tuskegee was so popular is that Highway 80 came through Tuskegee.
Mm-hmm.
And Highway 80 was a major thoroughfare, east to west, west to east, in the United States. Everybody came through here. They might not have stopped, but they came through here.
Mm-hmm.
I-85 is that now. So the way that we're going to have to develop is to develop out near I-85. And of course the city limit has already been extended out there. But highways and rivers, and we have a river coming through here too. The Tallapoosa River is here. Developments can be done along the Tallapoosa River if we can extend water and sewer out to those places. But Highway I-85 is a major thoroughfare, and it's a blessing. When I was in the Senate, I tried to get built another interchange that would have brought a road into Tuskegee, between Tuskegee and the VA hospital. Mm-hmm. Congressman Earl Hilliard was in office at that time, and we had talked together, and we were going to do that. And I had gotten it approved, but the leadership at Tuskegee University had other plans, so they would not.
Is that the only bridge now without the exits out there on 85? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, that interchange would have been along, that road that runs behind the VA?
Yeah.
Okay, it would have been in that area, but it would have come through the old Boy Scout camp. You've been out there because you've been nice. Yeah. It would have come that direction from the interstate, mm-hmm, through the Boy Scout camp, between Tuskegee University and the VA hospital, and would have run into Main Street. That was the route, and we had it done actually. Earl Hilliard was in line with it. The Department of Transportation was in line with it. The Alabama Department of Transportation, and Ron Green was over there at that time, and he helped us. But we had it done, but we couldn't get the cooperation of the university, and it was their land that we were talking about coming in through. And that was a problem also. We've had problems in leadership, mm-hmm, in the community, and I think that may be something that needs to be mentioned. Everybody here wants their own little kingdom. The VA here, the Tuskegee University over there, the city over there, and the county over here. And people don't cooperate.
Sure.
Now, they cooperate more now than they have in past years. But back when I was chamber president, just trying to get people to come together to accomplish things was very difficult. We were new to leadership. We were new to management. And so, I guess we had the notion that we had to be in control of this little empire that we had inherited. But things are better now. I'm hopeful now. And it's up to your generation.
It certainly is.
Only thing I can do is tell you what happened. I can tell you what happened.
Yeah.
But you all are going to have to move it forward.
That's right. It's up for us to learn from the past and see if we can't move that football down another 10 yards. Well, It's been an interesting conversation, Mr. Clay. I appreciate your time. It's been very insightful, and we appreciate you coming to sit and talk with us.
Well, thank you for listening. Old folks like to be listened to.
All right.